We are back. New York Met Baseball, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko. My co-host is Marty Rose from Jacksonville. I'm from Alameda, California. We're both from Jackson Heights, New York, and we're original Met fans.
This is true.
How you doing, Marty Rose?
I'm doing fine, Ralph. How are you?
Good. Your Thanksgiving Day holiday went well, I take it?
Very well. Yes, very well. Thank you.
Good.
Hope yours did.
We're joined tonight by a return guest. Anybody who returns to these airways, it's a good sign. That means they liked it, and we're honored to have you back because you're a maven about Mets minor league baseball. And you're Daniel Weiss from New York. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, it's a very informative guy, very, very up on things. And what caught my mind was that from our last visit was you're a Brooklyn Cyclone maven, and the Brooklyn Cyclones are a very important minor league team. They're the entry-level team for the highest prospects that they sign each year. And it's terrific that you have such expertise. You follow them all these, this must be at least their 10th year. Am I correct?
Yes, this upcoming season will be the 17th. They moved to Brooklyn in 2001.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Where did they come from? Where they relocated as a franchise?
Okay, well, this team originated in St. Catharines, which I believe is in Ontario. It's in Canada. They were the St. Catharines Stompers. The Blue Jays for quite a number of years. They actually won the championship in '86 for the Penn League, and then that was from '86 to '95. They were called the St. Catharines Blue Jays, and then the following 4 years they were called the Stompers, and then they actually moved to Queens, New York for 1 year. They were still a Blue Jays affiliate, and they played in St. John's University. For 1 year before.
Did you know that, Mert?
No, I did not. No.
They were called the Queens Kings. Queens, that's a clever nickname. Because for those of you who don't know it, Kings is basically the name of Brooklyn. I think it was, if not the original name.
Kings County. Yeah.
Kings County. Okay, so gotcha. All right, that's interesting. Now, who was the team that represented the Mets in the Penn League before the Cyclones?
They were the Pittsfield Mets for quite a number of years. I tend to forget where Pittsfield is, but it
Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
They were in Pittsfield. What?
Yeah. Massachusetts. Yeah.
So they were there since had been there since '89. So I believe the Astros became the Pittsfield team. There's a whole big shuffling that happens every couple of years.
Right. Well, it seems to be a good working relationship, and it has to be very convenient for the Mets brass to be able to not have to travel to see their best prospects or their up-and-coming prospects. That's pretty cool. But I started to say what got me was 30 ex-Cyclones on the roster. Is that on the 40-man roster? Is that correct? Did I read that correctly? Or 30 ex-Cyclones made the major leagues?
54 or at least have played in the major leagues. And the current 40-man roster I haven't looked at, but that number would not shock me because so many of them, they start with Brooklyn, they move their way up. So guys like Duda, Conforto, not familiar. He didn't play with them. I'm trying to think who else. Gabe and Noah. They were all Cyclones. Plawecki, I saw on his way up. I actually had a photo with him. Flores was another guy who played in Brooklyn. Lagares very briefly. Brandon Nimmo. All these guys who, we all saw them in Brooklyn.
Right. And, of course, big names managed them. Howard Johnson managed them. Alfonso's brother was a minor league manager for a long time with Brooklyn. And fine history. What I'd like, if you could help us tonight, is give us kind of a rundown, if you would, on Mets who are playing in the Arizona Fall League, if you would.
All right. So obviously we got the newest Met, Tebow, who I have not seen play baseball yet, other than a couple games on TV.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to pull up the roster so I could get a sense of who's on the team. So, but I think Gavin Cecchini was one that was on there. So
probably the number one shortstop prospect.
I know he's up there on the list. All right, Champ Stewart, who he wasn't a former Cyclone, but I saw him play for Binghamton and Savannah, and even Team Great Britain at the World Baseball Classic. He's one of their top prospects, I know. That's supposed to be coming up in a couple years. Matt Oberste, I know when the Mets drafted him, he had a very good college career, and he's been doing pretty good throughout the system. Another guy is Corey Oswald, who is a very good pitcher. I know he was an all-star in Brooklyn, and along with Marcos Molina, who's another guy listed on the roster. And I know Molina was one of those guys who just dominated the league in strikeouts, threw a lot of innings, got a lot of wins. He was the real ace of the staff. And I believe when he was in Brooklyn, he won the Sterling Award, which is the MVP award for Mets minor leaguers.
He was one of the guys. He was one of the guys that they added to the 40-man roster on the last move that they made. Was about 2 weeks ago, maybe. They filled out the 40-man roster because you've got the Rule 5 draft coming up on December 8th. So, yeah, he was definitely one of those guys. So you're very familiar with him. And did you mention Rosario as well?
I don't see him on the roster list on the Scottsdale Scorpions roster. But I know I know the roster does sometimes change. But Ahmed Rosario is another guy who I think is going to be, I think the Mets are holding off on long-term shortstops because they think this guy is really good and that he might be the future of the
Rosario, not the first guy we talked about, whose name I can't pronounce.
Cecchini?
Yeah, Cecchini.
Well, I know they're both big on them, and I noticed the Mets always seem to draft shortstops. Now, part of that is every guy you draft out of high school who's not a pitcher is somehow a shortstop.
Right.
So
they're the best athletes usually.
Yes, I was just going to say the best athletes.
Yeah.
Best athletes.
That's very interesting. Speaking of Tebow, I don't remember where I heard it in the past few days, but it probably is the reason they signed him in the first place. Notwithstanding that Cespedes' agent is the same guy that is Tebow's agent, but I read or heard that attendance for the Scorpions increased like threefold from last year. So, which is a lot of seats, butts in the seats. Not just the price of admission, but buying merchandise and food and T-shirts and this, that, and the other thing, and jerseys and stuff. I think it's just purely a financial thing to boost the attendance of that team. That's
the Tebow business.
That's my guess. Which I don't like it from the standpoint it takes a roster spot and a position spot away from somebody who may be more deserving. And
yeah, well, he's not on the 40-man roster though.
No, but I'm talking about playing time in this very, very important Arizona Fall League. This had some great instruction coming out of there, and
well, some other people brought up. Yeah, some other people brought up the fact that he and Cespedes have the same agent. So,
right.
Yeah. Whatever that might.
Do you think the Mets are going to sign? I'll ask Daniel first. Do you think the Mets are going to re-sign Cespedes?
I have a feeling probably in the end they will, because it doesn't seem anyone else is signing him, and I think he wants to be a Met. I think he wants to try to win a World Series with them, and they say he loves New York. So I think he's going to end up, they're going to end up, holding out and they'll get a better deal, another 1 or 2 year deal, and maybe he won't opt out after a year.
Right.
As for Tebow, I think that a lot of the influence in signing him is the fact that the Mets can make a nice money off it, because if he plays in Brooklyn, which is owned by the Brooklyn Baseball Company, which is one of the many companies that Fred and Jeff Wilpon own, they pocket most of the money, because the way it normally works is you get a person signs a contract with a major league team to house their minor league team. They have to pay the staff, which are the ballpark staff, the front office, but they don't pay the players. So when you sell a ticket for $10, depending on the contract, say about 25% of that ticket goes to the major league organization to cover, the fact that we're giving you these good players, we get a cut of it. So I think part of the reasons is that the Mets own both St. Lucie and the Cyclones. They would actually pocket all that profit, even though it technically goes from one subsidiary to another. I think that's a big reason they chose Tebow, is that they could actually make money. You put him in Brooklyn with all the other high school draftees, and if he doesn't hit there, if you ever watch a Cyclones game, none of them hit. So he would actually fit in very well.
It's not just high school kids coming out. It's a lot of kids from the Dominican and a lot of college kids. We seem to get a number on the Cyclones every year. They draft a number of college pitchers especially. So it's a high league, and I don't know if he's up to it, but like I say, if I recognize the fact that it's a business. I didn't realize the Mets owned all of their minor league affiliates, their key minor league affiliates. We're talking about Brooklyn, Port St. Lucie, plus they own the complex down there as well, I'm sure. They're doing well. And there's a Florida State League team in it's called, ironically, Port St. Lucie, that's the one. Never mind. Little brain fart there. That's what happens with old guys. Mert doesn't know that yet. He's still 69. Yeah, I've crossed the barrier to be 70. Septuagenarian, or don't remember what that's
Septuagenarian,
called. Yeah. Septuagenarian. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that. I guess. Anyway,
I think a number of the fans who I talk with, we were kind of open to the idea of Tebow. It wouldn't be the worst thing, because we feel that it would boost the attendance and there'd be a little more money, and that maybe they would start spending money on improving the ballpark a tiny bit. And we just feel, it's a rare opportunity. And if in some scenario that he does have a good career, he moves up and somehow makes the majors, we could say that we got to see Tebow play for the Cyclones.
Yeah, that's very, very good. If he does make the majors, that's the key. Okay, guys, I want to play a little game off the top of my head. the game isn't off the top of my head. I've been thinking about it, but I'm going to name a position. And in this case, we're going to start with third base. And I just I'll go back and forth between the three of us. And not in order of their success. I mean, the greatest third baseman of all time as a Met could be just based on who you liked, who you thought was interesting. Tell me a story about a third baseman that played for the Mets that you enjoyed watching, and have a kind of a kinship with, if you will. Start with Daniel, our guest.
With kinship.
All-time Mets.
Well, let's see. Obviously for third base, I might have to go with Edgardo Alfonso, though I would also consider him at second base. I have to be somewhat friendly with Fonzie because he's the Brooklyn Cyclone's bench coach, and being at every game and a lot of road games, I interact with him. I've interviewed him, and he happens to be an all-around great guy.
Okay.
But for greatest Mets third baseman ever,
not the greatest, but tell me something. Tell me a Met memory that you have of Fonzie.
Well, Met memory, I don't have that many because I was much younger then. If I had to do it based on a memory, I could almost go with Robert Ventura because I saw him hit that great grand slam that was ruled a single. I was at that game with my father and my siblings.
I do remember that. Yes. So that very good memory. Mert, third baseman.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't have any close ties to any of them like Daniel might. But,
no, I don't mean, but memories and games that you went to or thoughts, players that helped them.
Mean, I gotta like, what Ray Knight brought in 1986. That, that was, more than his numbers. He was a big time leader on the field, and I don't know if they win without him, to tell you the truth. And I liked Hojo. He played there a lot of years.
Right.
And if you want to go back further, I like Wayne Garrett as well. When you go back.
He was very solid, and I think when they won in '73, he was still there, and good memories. I want to mention, Brooks, U.B. Brooks, Paul U.B. Brooks.
Yep.
Played with them, solid ball player. Played with them for a number of years, right before they won in '86, and I think he traded in '85, as a matter of fact, and never got to play on that championship team. And he was a good ball player.
He was very good, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very, very good ball player. Good. That was nice. We'll pick a position and on a weekly basis, and we'll just talk about memories of players. Can't not mention, if you're talking about third base, the original Met third baseman. Remember who that was?
Don Zimmer.
Yep, Don Zimmer, 1 for 34, and was doing very, very poorly. They traded him in May for Marvelous Marv Throneberry.
Oh boy!
And that was Marvelous Marv. Kind of epitomized what the Mets were in that first year. Good, bad, or indifferent. He was interesting. He was good-spirited. Let's put it that way, because he made a lot of errors and could have handled it a lot differently. A lot of people lose track of the fact that he was a great Yankee prospect at one time. coming up. I think in Denver he hit a bunch of home runs. That might have been a clue as to what was going to happen later on, a bunch of home runs in Denver. But, he was quite a character in those early years. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the third baseman they got for after Zimmer was Cliff Cook, who came to them, a highly touted prospect from Cincinnati, and had a bad back. So he ended up not playing very well, which made him fit in very well with that 1962 Met team. I don't know what else to say about third baseman. Daniel, anything you want to add? What you think is coming up in the coming season? What do you think we'll be surprised by? Who's your favorite prospect coming up that others might consider to be a dark horse?
I think Harold Gonzalez is that top prospect, because I have in front of me the top prospect list, and this guy, I don't even know if he's on the list. He was overlooked a lot this season, and he dominated as a pitcher for Brooklyn, and I felt he should have won the Sterling, which is the MVP award, and he didn't even get it. He's not even on. I don't even see him on the list, and he led the New York Penn League in strikeouts, and he's a great guy, and seeing him pitch, I have a feeling this guy in a couple of years will make the majors.
Beautiful.
He probably doesn't have to be protected yet.
No,
he probably doesn't have to be protected yet because he's not on the 40-man roster. How old is he?
I think, would he have to be 3 years in to be protected? Must be protected.
Well, if you sign, I think if you sign a kid that is 18 or younger, it's 4 years, and if you sign somebody that's 19 or older, it's 3 years.
So he's pitched 2 years. He's pitched 3 years in the minors, and he's going to be 22 in March.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I just think he did very well, and I think he's going to be the one that's going to start being on the top prospect list.
Now, how about position players, Daniel?
Position players, a couple of them who looked good this year that's on the Cyclones. Like they have that potential. I think Peter Alonso, who's currently on the list at 13. For his injury, he was hitting very well. I think he's going to possibly be in the majors one day. He's built, and I've seen him outside the ballpark, and he's usually just like a short sleeve shirt. It's like you don't want to mess with this guy. He's pretty big.
Right.
So that's another guy who I think will make the majors if he could hit well. I have not seen their first round pick Anthony Kay pitch. He was injured, but Justin Dunn looked good in his outings. Desmond Lindsay, I thought, had a decent season for what he was able to play because he also was sidelined with injuries. So I think they have a number of guys who will be good in a couple of years, but hopefully they don't trade them away, and hopefully there's a lot that could happen in the next couple of years between injuries, guys just hitting their peak, and that's it. So I think there is some potential there, but the Mets do have to work on player development because it seems whenever they draft these great college hitters, they just can't hit in Brooklyn.
Right. That's something to think about. Let me ask you this. If you were the director of player development, what's the first thing you'd change?
Right now, I would actually have the managers play more to win, because I think I think this whole idea where they platoon certain guys, they play certain guys more than others, I don't think it works. I don't understand the logic. If you have a guy on the bench who's hitting .225, and you have a guy starting every day going 1 for 4, and then 0 for 4, 0 for 4, 1 for 4, has one good day, if him getting more playing time and hitting like constantly in the 170s, I don't think that's fair at all. One of the guys the Mets drafted, Michael Paez, had a terrible season. And I understand he's a top pick, but if you're not producing, you don't deserve to play.
Right.
And I think that's one thing they need to work on. And, some of these innings limits that they do on pitchers, I'm not so big on because I feel that's why we have more injuries. Because years ago, we never had such injuries, and we never had guys on such limits. I think the more you pitch, the more stamina and more durable you get.
Well, that would be true in the old days when kids weren't trying to throw 98 miles an hour on every pitch. And I think you have to have, based on that, you have to have a pitch count. And if anything, you have to give them more days rest. And that's Marty's idea.
That's why, we've been discussing the possibility of going to a six-man rotation. If all their starters are healthy, they're going to have a pretty fair amount of starters available. And, what I'm saying is you notice that right after the All-Star game, when guys have had, like a whole week off, basically, they come back and they're completely rejuvenated because they've had extra time to rest. Well, if you give them the extra time to rest during the season, the same thing may be true. But, nobody knows for sure. I guess it would be a trial and error thing, and I guess nobody wants to be the first one to put in a six-man rotation. But
teams have done it, and there are times it doesn't seem to work as well, they say. I'm sure, in the last 10 years, there's got to be one team that's tried it. And I'm sure, and I remember the Mets have briefly done six-man rotations, but then one pitcher just doesn't pitch well, so they remove him from the
guys who are running it right to the end of the time. Just tell me, do you guys think we're going to miss Cologne, or do you think getting rid of him at this point was a good decision? Not getting rid of him, but not really coming up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, one of these days, his age is going to catch up to him. And I think because of what was shown by Gazelman and Yanoa and Lugo toward the end of the year, I think they could afford to let him walk for the $12.5 million that he got. They only paid him $7-something last year. So
Daniel, real quick, because we're coming up against it. Do you agree?
I think it was a bad move. He's durable. He's a good leader. He pitches well. He's an innings eater. On a one-year contract, I would have done it.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Daniel, thanks for coming back. I hope you'll continue to do so. You're an additive, and hope you had a little bit of fun, too. Mert, as usual, this is terrific.
Okay.
And we'll get
you
both next week.
Thanks, Daniel.
Next week. And, Daniel, I meet you back real soon.
All right, thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Keep on keeping on, everybody.
All right. Thank you.